Hello friends, it's Briar with the Grazing Daisy, and today I'm going to be telling you guys all of the mistakes, adventures, all of the above that I've had with my worms since I got them at the last day of January, and I'm just going to go over some things I wish I would have done differently. So without further ado, let's go check on the worms. Here is my worm bin. It's been living inside of my bathtub pretty much ever since the week after I received my worms, because they were crawling out all over the place. Every day I have to sweep up dry, crusty worms, and sometimes I'm lazy and I leave the worm bin outside the bathtub, and then there's worms on the bathroom floor. I don't know if you can see that. There's one right there. So it's just kind of been like my daily routine is waking up and sweeping up the worms that crawled out overnight and got dried up. This is the current state of my worm bin. The first thing you'll probably notice are these little plants that I have in here. I just pulled these out of the dirt a few days ago because, these are all apple trees that sprouted from an apple core that I fed my worms. So I thought that was kind of fun that they actually sprouted. I guess that means that the soil is good and will grow plants, so that's encouraging. I guess what I want to get at is this is the current state of the worm bin. I have some squash rinds on the top for them. They've been enjoying hiding under those. I have other apple cores and just chunks of things that I was gonna throw away that I buried underneath here. I kept most of it underneath the soil because when it's above the soil, I feel like it gets moldy. So that's just something I've learned about food, but I'm still kind of trying to get my system down for how to feed them. As far as moisture goes, you're supposed to squirt water on them every day. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really been doing that, and you're kind of just supposed to feel how wet it is. It's moist. It's definitely moist, so it's not dried out. I have put water in here once before. That was a couple weeks ago. So I think it's still kind of moist from that. I just don't want to overwater it. I don't want to drown my worms accidentally, which is why there's drainage at the bottom here. But at the same time, I just haven't really been remembering to just squirt a little bit on it each day. So I don't know if that would improve anything. But this is kind of how it is right now. I'm gonna take this part off and look in the bottom to see if there's a whole bunch of worms in there or something. I haven't looked down there in a while, so let's check on that. Here is the bottom of our worm bin. As you can see, a lot of debris has gotten down there, and the reason is mistake number one, which was not actually putting cardboard at the bottom of this bin like I was originally planning on doing, because I realized I didn't really have any cardboard laying around, and instead of finding some or getting some, I just put extra layers of regular paper. And I'm pretty sure when I put all that extra wet substrate in here the first day, you can refer back to my original worm video if you'd like, I put some extra wet dirt soil on top of that. I think it probably wet through all the paper, created holes, and made that completely pointless and useless to keeping the worms from getting down out of here. And if you've watched any of my shorts where I show the worms escaping out of the worm bin, you'll notice that a lot of them were escaping through this middle part here. That's not the only spot where they were crawling out of. As you can see when we put the lid on top here, there are these little ventilation spacers. That is a perfect hole for worms to crawl out of, so they were getting out of there too. So if I were to do this any differently, first of all, I would definitely put down an actual piece of cardboard, and I also probably would have added less water to the substrate when I was making it, but I wasn't really sure what I was doing then, so that's a mistake that I'm okay with. But I definitely should have added the cardboard because I knew I was supposed to do that and I just didn't. I'm not gonna lie, I've always been kind of scared to dig through here just because I don't remember where I buried random bits of food, and it would be kind of disgusting if I touched something that was really gross and rotten. But I'm going to try to dig back, and we'll try to see what we can see of the paper that I did put down here. I don't know what I am going to find down here. Worms, I'm finding worms. Well, that's good. Interesting! It's almost as if I never put any paper down at all. Weird. Huh. So the paper must have all just dissolved. That definitely would have done me some good to put actual cardboard down there. Oh yeah, but this is actually a really good moisture, I feel like, for the worms. It's like not too dry, but also not too wet. One thing I've also been noticing is that there have been like tiny baby worms. I am done touching that. Alright, so like I said before, my worms have been escaping continuously. And for the longest time, I was just so busy that I just kept them in the bathtub because I was like, I'll figure it out eventually. I'll deal with it later. They can live in the bathtub, it's not hurting anything. I don't mind having to move it in and out of the bathtub all the time. Well, I finally had this idea. I remembered when I was having a lot of problems with like birds in my garden last year, I put mesh over like all of my pea plants because the birds were just eating all of my pea pods before I could. I just covered them with like this mesh, and I was like, what if I had a fine enough mesh that I could cover the entire drawer with to keep the worms contained within the mesh. So it was this brilliant idea. I got some mesh from my parents' house, brought it over, and it was like a mesh bag, and it fit perfectly out. I'm not sure how good my editing skills are, but if they're good, I will have the short video playing silently right next to my head. We'll see how good future Briar is at doing that, to kind of show you what I'm talking about. But it was like this mesh bag, went over top of my bin, and I thought that the holes were small enough to keep worms out, but I was totally wrong. No, the worms could definitely get through that. And the other thing I forgot to note was that I thought that the things at the bottom of the tray were flat, but they were actually slanted. So that made it so that no matter how thin the mesh actually was, the worms still would be able to get out of the mesh and like just be like hanging out like a little hammock on there. The other problem with that is once I realized the worms were still getting out of the container when they were in the mesh, I realized I was gonna have to take the mesh off, which was like, it took me, I don't know, 5 days before I built up the courage to actually take it off because I was like, this is gonna be disgusting. And it kind of was. My entire bathroom was just a mess of dirt. So many worms had like gone down, and there were like baby worms, like a little playground where like weaving in and out. Like some worms got themselves like all tangled up in the mesh, and it was a disaster. I was having to like untangle squirming worms out of the little threads. It was quite a mess. I learned I'm never going to do that again, but that's where we come into the last and most important thing I have learned about keeping worms. So my mom was talking to one of her friends who also used to keep worms, and she was like, Briar's having a lot of troubles with keeping her worms contained inside of the worm bin. Like, do you have any advice? Like, what did you do with your worms? And she basically said, yeah, they're just gonna escape. They just do that. So what she had done is she had taken like a Rubbermaid tub with like an O-ring seal, and the lid, she had cut a hole in it and put like a mesh top, which I'm pretty sure the worms could still get through that, but that's for ventilation on the top. And then basically just have the whole thing like sealed off. Not only did I purchase this worm bin for containing my worms, it cost me about $70, when in reality what I should have done is I should have gone to the store, purchased like a $5 to $10 tote and a couple other things to alter it to make it actually work. So I spent more money than I needed to. I can't return it, kind of stuck with it, and I don't think there's too much that I can do to actually alter this, so I might have to go and purchase those other things anyways to actually get this in something that's actually going to be practical. If you are wanting to keep worms, you're planning on it, or you think you might want to in the future, or even if you don't want to in the future, here is my advice to you. Don't purchase one of these unless you want them to be living in your bathtub for months. The worms will escape. It doesn't matter if you get the blue worms or the red worms, all the worms are going to escape. There's not one that's going to escape more than the other. I mean, perhaps. Maybe these red worms are escaping a lot less than if I were to have gotten like the blue worms. I'm not sure, but in my experience, a lot of these escape every day. Like I'll have normally on a normal day 8 to 10 worms dead on my floor. So if you don't want to have to deal with that, I would suggest finding a better option, or you can keep your worms outside. That's another option. I personally can't do that, but in the future, when I have like a homestead with a bunch of land, more than likely the worms will stay outside. What did we learn? We learned that 1, worms will always escape. 2, don't spend more money on your worms than you have to, because just because it costs more money doesn't mean it's actually going to contain your worms. And 3, listen to what other people have done and don't just completely go crazy. Alright, that's going to be all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe. I've never actually said that before on my channel and it feels so cool, so I'm gonna say that. Have a great day.